The Galactic Concordance prided itself on its ability to catalogue and integrate new species. For millennia, they had uplifted countless civilizations, guiding them away from the chaos of war and survival-driven brutality toward enlightenment and prosperity. Every species encountered thus far had fallen into predictable categories: delicate scholars, frail bureaucrats, slow-moving philosophers. Even their warriors, bred for battle, fought within the bounds of strategy and honor. Then they found Earth. First, it seemed unremarkable. A standard terrestrial world with liquid water, nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere, and teeming with life. When the initial planetary scans detected a sentient species, the Concordance's xenoanthropologists assumed humanity would be no different from the others. Perhaps another gentle herbivore race, possibly a slightly warlike omnivore species that would need some time to adjust to galactic civilization. That assumption shattered when the first observation team made landfall. The problem with Earth. The Concordance had catalogued thousands of planets, but none like this. Earth was wrong in every possible way. It was a death world, a term reserved for planets where survival was statistically impossible. The gravity was high enough to cripple most concordant species. The weather was unpredictable, with hurricanes, earthquakes, and seasonal shifts so violent they would have been classified as extinction-level events anywhere else. Even the plant life was hostile, some producing toxins, others feeding on insects, and a few even consuming small animals. The animal life? A nightmare. Creatures with redundant organs, venom that melted flesh, and eyesight designed to track movement at long distances. There were predators on other planets, but none this fast, this cunning. Even the herbivores could kill 7-ton behemoths, trampling anything in their path, territorial giants with bone-crushing jaws. But the true horror wasn't the animals. It was the humans. A species that refused to die. The first face-to-face meeting between humans and the Concordance observers occurred in a remote region of what the natives called Alaska. The team's mission was simple: study humans in their natural environment, make cultural assessments, and initiate peaceful diplomatic contact. Then a blizzard struck. For any other species, this would have been an extinction event. The temperature dropped to lethal levels. The howling winds buried equipment under meters of snow. Concordance researchers, whose bodies were adapted to stable, warm climates, found their extremities failing within hours. The emergency beacon froze. They prepared for death. Then they saw the human. A lone figure, wrapped in furs and insulated clothing, moved through the storm as if it were nothing more than a mild inconvenience. When they collapsed from cold, the human did something no concordant species had ever done. He picked them up. They were strangers, unknown. Yet this human, who had every reason to leave them behind, carried them back to shelter. Inside a small cabin, they witnessed things that should have been impossible. The human ignited fire from dead plant matter. He crafted tools on the spot. He took food from storage, and despite the horrifying bacterial risks, cooked it over open flames, rendering it safe to eat. He moved with the confidence of something that had fought nature itself and won. When the storm ended, the observer team was alive. The human saw them off with a casual wave, utterly unaware of what he had done. A report sent back to the Concordance caused panic. More than just survivors, Further studies revealed more disturbing truths. Humans did not fear pain the way other species did. They continued to function through injuries that should have been fatal. When a concordance scientist watched a human dislocate his own shoulder, slam it back into place, and keep fighting, she nearly fainted in shock. Humans had no biological limits on exertion. Other species had built-in mechanisms to prevent overuse of muscles. Humans, they ran until their bodies collapsed, and even then, some got up and kept moving. They had no true natural weapons, no claws, no fangs, no venom. Yet, they had become apex predators through sheer intelligence and persistence. They turned anything into a weapon: a sharpened stick, a shaped rock, a chemical reaction. Their entire history was defined by warfare and survival. The Concordance's dilemma. For the first time in history, the Concordance debated whether to block a species from joining the galactic community, not because they were weak, but because they were too strong. A civilization like this could never be controlled. It could never be pacified. Unlike the fragile species of the Concordance, who had long abandoned war and hardship, humanity still carried the instincts of a species that had fought to the top of its food chain. Some argued that humanity should be welcomed cautiously, guided away from its violent tendencies. Others believed they should be contained, perhaps even eradicated before they became a true threat. But one thing was certain. The galaxy had just found its first true predators, and the Concordance didn't know whether to fear them or worship them. The Galactic Concordance had a protocol for newly discovered species. First, assess their technological progress. Second, determine their biological limitations. Third, offer integration into the wider galaxy. Humanity, that protocol had been shattered. The problem wasn't their technology. It was behind the galactic standard, but advancing at an unnerving pace. The problem wasn't even their biology, though their unnatural endurance, adaptability, and pain tolerance had already made the Concordance worry. The real issue was their mindset. Other species in the galaxy followed predictable rules: avoid unnecessary risks, preserve energy, and minimize danger. Humans, they ran toward danger. The impossible experiment. The Concordance High Council was divided. Half believed humans were too unpredictable to be integrated. The other half saw them as a resource, potentially the greatest warriors the galaxy had ever seen. A secret decision was made. A controlled experiment. A human team would be placed on Skull-Tath 5, a Class 10 Deathworld. The planet was infamous. Its gravitational pull crushed most life forms, its atmosphere was laced with toxic gases, and its ecosystem was dominated by predators so aggressive they had hunted entire scout ships. No species had survived more than 6 hours. The Concordance selected a group of humans, soldiers, scientists, and engineers. They were told this was a joint survival exercise with a Concordance team. The aliens, however, were not informed of the true purpose: watching humanity fail. That was the plan. It lasted 14 minutes. Hunting the hunters. The humans did not panic upon arrival. They scanned the air, adjusted their breathing devices, and began fortifying their landing zone within minutes. The Concordance team, meanwhile, was already struggling. One of their scientists collapsed under the gravity. Another was nearly mauled by a Skull-Tathian razor beast, a reptilian nightmare with armored plating and acidic blood. Before the Concordants could even scream, a human snapped into action. One of their soldiers charged the creature. No hesitation, no fear. With a precisely thrown blade, he severed its tendons. The razor beast collapsed, screeching. The humans surrounded it, coordinating without words, and a single plasma shot from their commander ended the fight. The Concordance team was stunned. That alone was impossible. These creatures had wiped out entire military squads. But the horror grew when a human engineer crouched beside the corpse and started analyzing it. "This hide is resistant to plasma, but not against kinetic force," she muttered, running her fingers across the armor. "We could use this." They weren't just fighting to survive. They were learning. The world that fell to humanity. At the next few days, the humans did the impossible. Where previous teams had fled from Skultath V's dangers, humanity adapted. They hunted the apex predators, engineered shelters that could withstand the violent storms, and repurposed the planet's natural toxins into medicines and weapons. The Concordance team, once proud scientists, were now dependents, struggling to keep up. One evening, a storm swept across the region, winds strong enough to tear flesh from bone. The Concordance members panicked, expecting death. The humans? They laughed. "We dealt with worse back home," one said, reinforcing a shelter with razor beast hide. "Ice storms in Antarctica are colder," another joked. By morning, the storm had passed, and humanity emerged unscathed. That was the moment the Concordance understood. Humans were not just survivors. They were conquerors. The unnatural growth of humanity. The experiment had lasted 3 months. Not only had the humans survived, they thrived. When the retrieval ship arrived, expecting to collect traumatized survivors, they found something terrifying. The humans had built an outpost, a functioning settlement on a planet deemed uninhabitable. The Skultathian predators that had terrorized the Concordance for centuries. The humans had hunted them into extinction in their region. The atmosphere, once a death sentence, the humans had engineered filtration masks from local plants. Most disturbing of all, when the team was told they could leave, some humans hesitated. "We were just getting started," one muttered. The Concordance's greatest fear. The retrieval officers sent their report immediately. Within days, every major power in the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity was not just dangerous. They were unstoppable. The entire Concordance now faced a terrifying dilemma. A species like this, resilient, fearless, endlessly inventive, could either become the greatest ally the galaxy had ever known, or the last enemy it would ever face. The footage of humanity's survival on Skultath 5 spread through the Galactic Concordance like wildfire. What was meant to be a quiet experiment had become a warning. Governments debated, military councils panicked, and entire planetary networks adjusted their foreign policies overnight. Some factions saw an opportunity. Others saw a threat. But all agreed on one thing: humanity could no longer be ignored. A seat at the table. Centuries, the Galactic Concordance had followed the same ritual. When a species reached the necessary technological threshold, they were given a formal invitation to join the galactic community. The process was structured, predictable, and carefully managed to ease civilizations into the wider universe. Humanity's invitation was different. It was rushed, pushed through the bureaucracy at an unprecedented speed. The official reason was to promote peaceful cooperation. The real reason? Fear. The Concordance knew that humanity's progress was accelerating. If they weren't brought into the fold now, they might become a power the Concordance couldn't control. So the invitation was sent. A delegation of human representatives, scientists, diplomats, and military leaders was welcomed aboard the Celestial Dawn, a massive space station that served as the neutral heart of interstellar politics. Every species had sent their own envoys, eager to assess humanity up close. The surface, the meeting was friendly. The Concordance praised humanity's remarkable adaptability and unbreakable spirit. Offers of trade, cultural exchange, and scientific cooperation were extended. But beneath the surface, hidden hands were already at work. The sabotage begins. Not everyone in the galaxy wanted humanity to thrive. Some saw them as an existential threat, an unchecked force of nature that could one day replace the Concordance itself. These factions had a plan. Step 1. Cripple humanity before they became too powerful. Step 2. Ensure they were permanently dependent on the Concordance. First attack was diplomatic. The trade agreements offered to humanity were insulting, one-sided deals designed to drain Earth's resources while offering little in return. Ethnology exchanges were heavily restricted, ensuring that humanity remained behind in key areas like energy production and starship development. The second attack was psychological. Concordance media networks began a subtle campaign, portraying humans as primitive, violent, and unpredictable. Articles, speeches, and broadcasts carefully framed humanity as a species of war, too dangerous to be trusted with leadership roles. And then came the final move, the one designed to break humanity completely. The silent betrayal. At the heart of the Concordance was an unspoken rule: no interference in a species' internal affairs. That rule was about to be broken. Using their network of spies and infiltrators, an anti-human coalition made secret contact with Earth's most corrupt and power-hungry politicians, corporate elites, and military hardliners. They offered them influence, wealth, and advanced technology, but at a cost. The goal was simple: divide humanity against itself. If Earth fell into civil war, if its government splintered, if its people were too busy fighting each other, then humanity would never become a true galactic power. For a while, the plan seemed to be working. Political tensions on Earth spiked. Corporate leaders began sabotaging their own governments in exchange for alien favors. Factions within the human delegation on Celestial Dawn turned against each other, arguing over deals that would sell Earth's future for short-term gain. Our Concordance had seen this strategy work before. Many promising civilizations had been crippled from within using nothing but manipulation and greed. They assumed it would work on humans. They assumed wrong. The hack that changed everything. No one knew exactly who did it. Some claimed it was a rogue AI. Others whispered about an anonymous hacker within the human delegation. But one day, without warning, the entire Concordance intelligence network was exposed. human cybersecurity specialists had quietly infiltrated the station's data systems, watching as deals were made, secrets exchanged, and plans laid out against them, and then they flipped the script. A single message was broadcast across every major concordance network. We know what you did. We know who you bribed. We know who you threatened. We know everything. Attached to the message were thousands of classified files, evidence of corruption, dissection, and outright sabotage. Names, dates, and transactions, all laid bare. The shockwave across the galaxy. The reaction was immediate. Several high-ranking concordance officials resigned in disgrace. Anti-human factions scrambled to destroy evidence of their involvement. Entire governments denied everything, while others turned on their own leaders in an attempt to distance themselves from the betrayal. And humanity? They didn't retaliate with war. They didn't demand revenge. Instead, they did something far worse. They watched. Watched as the concordance, for the first time in centuries, faced its own corruption. Watched as its people turned against each other in confusion and paranoia. Watched as the very strategy meant to break them instead fractured the concordance itself. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't just a species of warriors. They were something far more dangerous. They were a species of strategists. And now the galaxy was beginning to fear them for the right reasons. The concordance was in chaos. Centuries, it had operated in quiet dominion over the galaxy, its vast network of political control keeping species in line through diplomacy, manipulation, and the occasional silent purge. No species had ever resisted its influence long enough to challenge its rule. Until now. Humanity had not only survived the sabotage attempt, they had turned it back on its orchestrators. The leaked intelligence shattered the illusion of unity, exposing deep fractures in the concordance's structure. Some governments withdrew from anti-human coalitions, afraid of further exposure. Others scrambled to contain the fallout, issuing desperate reassurances that humanity was still an ally. But humanity did not respond immediately. Instead, they let the galaxy sweat. They watched as the concordance tried, and failed, to reassert control. They listened to the nervous whispers in diplomatic chambers, the panicked discussions among intelligence agencies, and the growing fear among alien leaders. And then, when the moment was right, humanity struck back. Humanity's counterattack. The silent war. Concordance had always assumed that its vast intelligence network made it untouchable. The idea that a species as young as humanity could match, let alone surpass, their espionage capabilities was unthinkable. Yet, in the weeks following the scandal, key figures began disappearing. Not in a way that suggested violence, not with assassinations or open warfare. They simply ceased to exist. A high-ranking politician known for pushing anti-human policies vanished, her last recorded transmission nothing more than steak. A corporate mogul who had tried to sell humanity's future for alien wealth, found on a barren moon with no memory of how he got there. A general who had been planning to propose military action against Earth. His private logs were leaked, exposing his personal corruption, and within days his own government turned on him. Message was clear. Humanity had its own way of waging war, and it was not through brute force. the military miscalculation. But there were still those who refused to accept humanity as anything more than a primitive species that had gotten lucky. Such faction, the Zorvash Dominion, believed that the only way to control humanity was through fear. Zorvash were one of the more militant species in the Concordance, a warrior culture that had earned respect through centuries of honorable combat. They considered the idea of war sacred, a ritualistic act that followed strict codes of engagement. When they saw humanity's growing influence, they mistook silence for weakness. That was their first mistake. Their second mistake was deploying a fleet toward a human outer colony, intending to issue an ultimatum: submit to Concordance rule or face destruction. Their third mistake was underestimating how humans fought. The Battle of Epsilon 4. The Zorvash fleet arrived in the Epsilon 4 system expecting an easy show of force. Instead, they found nothing. No defenses, no warships, just a handful of small orbital stations and a fledgling colony on the planet below. Confident in their superiority, they moved in, preparing to broadcast their terms. Then the first Zorvash warship exploded. Not from a battle, not from a counterattack, from within. The second ship suffered a similar fate, its engines shutting down just long enough for an unseen force to pull it toward the gravity well of a nearby moon. Panic spread through the fleet. Sensors were blind. Communications were scrambled. Every attempt to coordinate was met with failure. By the time they realized what was happening, it was already too late. Humanity had never planned to meet them in open battle. Instead, they had let the Zorvash arrive, infiltrated their fleet, hacked their systems, and turned their own warships into time bombs. By the end of the engagement, only one Zorvash warship remained, damaged, humiliated, and forced to retreat. It was a massacre. But not a single human shot had been fired. The galaxy's perspective shifts. The Zorvash were broken. Their defeat was public. Their centuries-old reputation as warriors had been shattered not by overwhelming force, but by something far worse, an enemy that refused to fight by the rules. The Concordance watched in stunned silence. Humanity had changed the game. For the first time, species across the galaxy truly understood the depth of their mistake. Humanity was not like them. They did not play fair. They did not follow the expected paths of power. They did not accept war as a ritual. Fight humanity was to invite something unseen, something relentless. And now, the rest of the galaxy had a choice. Adapt to humanity's methods, or be left behind. The final warning. After the battle, humanity finally spoke, not through threats, not through demands, but through a simple, chilling transmission sent to every major concordance power. We did not start this conflict. We do not seek war. But if you force our hand, know this: we will not meet you on the battlefield of your choosing. We will not fight by the rules you expect. We will end you before you even know the war has begun. Make your choice wisely. The galaxy held its breath. Humanity had not just survived. They had ascended. And the Concordance, once the galaxy's greatest power, now faced a new reality. The predators of Earth were no longer outsiders. They were now the ones watching from the shadows. And they were waiting. The Concordance was bleeding. The exposure of its corruption had shattered the public's trust. The failed Zorvash attack had turned one of its most powerful military factions into a disgraced relic. The sudden realization that humanity could not only outfight but also outthink them sent waves of paranoia through every major government. Some species whispered about alliances with humanity, recognizing their strength. Others feared extinction and scrambled for contingency plans. For the first time in centuries, the once unshakable Galactic Concordance was on the brink of collapse. And humanity was waiting to see who would make the first move. The schism begins. For decades, the Concordance had held its power through unity. Any internal disputes were handled quietly before they could spiral into full-blown civil unrest. But the fear of humanity had changed everything. The cracks were now too deep, the distrust too great, and those who had once ruled without question were beginning to turn on each other. Started with the Taraxi Dominion, a powerful economic bloc. They had always been opportunists, and when they saw that humanity had hacked and humiliated the Concordance leadership, they made a bold declaration. If the Concordance cannot protect its own people, then we will no longer recognize its authority. It was open defiance, a first step towards secession. The Concordance scrambled to contain the damage, but the Taraxi were already negotiating with humanity. The unthinkable was happening. Factions were beginning to side with Earth. The assassination attempt. The Concordance's High Council was panicking. They needed to re-establish control. They needed to remind the galaxy that they were still in power. And so, in desperation, they attempted to eliminate humanity's leadership. A covert strike team, assembled from the remnants of the anti-human coalition, was dispatched toward Luna Prime, the central command station of humanity's space forces. Their mission was clear: kill the key human decision-makers. Send a message that humanity was not untouchable. They never made it. Because by the time they entered the Sol system, their shuttle systems shut down mid-flight. Artificial gravity failed. Communications went dark. Weapons locked themselves. And then a single calm voice spoke through their remaining audio channels. You should have known better. The strike team's bodies were later recovered, frozen in the void of space. Their ship was left untouched, drifting as a silent warning. The Concordance had sent a message. Humanity had sent one back. The war that never came. And the days that followed, something terrifying became clear to the galaxy. Humanity was not launching counterattacks. They were not mobilizing war fleets. They were not retaliating in the way the Concordance expected. Instead, they watched. They waited. They let their enemies self-destruct. Every attempt to suppress humanity only made them stronger. Every desperate move by the Concordance further undermined its authority. Every attack was met not with brute force, but with precision retribution. Governments that had once feared humanity now sought alliances with them. Trade deals, once restricted, were now openly negotiated without the Concordance's approval. Military powers that had once dismissed humanity's fleet as primitive now feared it more than their oldest rivals. And at the heart of it all, Earth remained silent, watching, calculating, waiting for the galaxy to realize the truth. The breaking point. The Concordance's leadership collapsed within months. Too many factions had abandoned it. Too many governments had lost faith. And in the vacuum of power, a new question arose. Would humanity replace the Concordance? Would they claim the throne that had once ruled the galaxy? Would they finally seize control? The answer came in a single chilling broadcast delivered by Earth's highest-ranking diplomat standing before a galactic assembly that had once sought to enslave humanity. He spoke only 3 words. We decline leadership. New galactic order. The galaxy was stunned. Humanity did not seek dominion. They did not desire a throne. Because they didn't need one. They had already won. Without firing a single large-scale war, they had toppled the greatest galactic power in history. They had redrawn the interstellar balance. And now, every species knew the truth. Humanity could not be controlled. Humanity could not be defeated. And most terrifying of all, humanity had just begun. The Concordance was gone. Not through war, not through conquest, but through exposure, precision, and patience. Once mighty governing body had fractured, its laws and mandates ignored by species that now understood what true power looked like. The institutions that had ruled for centuries had crumbled under their own corruption, leaving a galactic power vacuum. And at the center of it all stood humanity. Not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as a force that could no longer be ignored. The great realignment. With the Concordance dead, the galaxy reorganized itself at a dizzying pace. Former member species scrambled to establish their own independent trade routes, security alliances, and power blocks. New regional governments emerged, some desperately clinging to old Concordance policies, others openly embracing humanity as partners, advisors, or silent enforcers. Humanity had no official empire, and yet their influence was everywhere. Trade agreements with Earth's corporate sector reshaped economic powerhouses. Human diplomats, once seen as outsiders, now advised entire planetary coalitions on interstellar strategy. Military contractors from Earth were hired as consultants, training alien security forces in tactics they had never even imagined. Even species that still feared humanity found themselves adapting to its methods, because they understood the truth. Resisting humanity was suicide. Silent Armada. Officially, Earth's military had not expanded much. Its fleet was still relatively small compared to older spacefaring civilizations. Its colonies were limited. But the galaxy's most powerful intelligence agencies knew the terrifying secret. No one actually knew how powerful humanity's forces had become. Every attempt to spy on Earth's military infrastructure had ended in failure. Reconnaissance ships that tried to breach the Sol system's defenses lost without explanation. Espionage drones sent to infiltrate human war factories, sent back disassembled, each part meticulously labeled as if to mock their creators. The lack of information was what terrified the galaxy the most, because what was known was already enough to paralyze entire military councils. The Battle of Epsilon 4 had proven humanity's ability to destroy fleets without open combat. The failed assassination attempt on Lunar Prime had shown their mastery of counterintelligence. The collapse of the Concordance had demonstrated their ability to cripple governments without firing a single shot. So the question on everyone's mind was, what else were the humans hiding? No one wanted to find out. The fear of the unknown. As the galaxy adjusted to this new reality, species that once mocked humanity now lived in a state of quiet, simmering paranoia. Governments drafted contingency plans for the possibility of human expansion, plans they prayed they'd never have to use. Alien military leaders debated in secret whether humanity could be defeated if necessary. Theoretical war games were run, each with different scenarios. A conventional war? Humanity wouldn't fight conventionally. A planetary invasion? Humans had already adapted to the deadliest environments imaginable. An economic blockade? Humanity had already woven itself into galactic trade networks. Every simulation ended in failure. We attempt to isolate, manipulate, or threaten humanity led to the same conclusion. There was no path to victory. And so, the galaxy did the only thing it could. It adapted. Humanity's shadow empire. As the years passed, humanity settled into its new role, not as conquerors, but as kingmakers. Wherever a new power rose, humans were already there, offering alliances. Whenever an empire fell, humans had already predicted it, moving into place before the collapse. Every government that held influence in the galaxy now consulted Earth's advisors. Even the species that resented humanity had no choice but to negotiate with them. Because no one wanted to become the next example. No one wanted to be the species that tested humanity's patience. And so, without ever raising a banner, without ever declaring themselves rulers, without ever seizing a throne, humanity ruled anyway. From the shadows. From the quiet corners of diplomacy, trade, and technology. From the knowledge that one wrong move could awaken a force that had already destroyed a galactic empire without a single large-scale battle. And the scariest part? Humanity was just getting started. The galaxy adapted to humanity, but it never truly understood them. To the Concordance, humans had once seemed like an easily controlled species, a young race, too impulsive to see the bigger picture. They had expected Earth to bend under galactic pressure, to assimilate like every other civilization before them. Instead, they had watched as humanity rewrote the rules of power. Now, every major civilization feared them, not just for what they had done, but for what they had never revealed. Because while the galaxy saw humanity's influence in diplomacy, trade, and warfare, they felt something much worse. The presence of something unseen. The vanishing war. Began with missing ships. Not in battles. Not in disputed territories. They simply vanished. High-ranking officials who once opposed humanity disappeared without a trace. Entire intelligence networks, some centuries old, were rendered useless overnight. The pattern was always the same. No evidence. No explanations. No traces of a struggle. Just silence. The galaxy whispered of the vanishing war. A conflict with no armies, no front lines, and no declarations. and every government knew who was responsible. But none dared to speak it aloud, because to accuse humanity would mean proving they had done it, and no one could. The experiment that crossed the line. The tipping point came when the Kalari Dominion, a species known for their cold efficiency, attempted to uncover Earth's true capabilities. They didn't send spies. They didn't infiltrate governments. They did something far worse. They abducted humans. Not soldiers, not intelligence officers, but scientists, engineers, and civilians, people critical to Earth's infrastructure. The Kalari believed they could study human minds, dissect human tactics, and reverse engineer what made Earth so dangerous. 3 months, their secret laboratories operated in hidden sectors. No distress signals escaped. No transmissions leaked. They thought they had succeeded. Then, without warning, their entire research colony vanished. Not destroyed, not attacked. It was erased. The Kalari's fleet arrived at the coordinates only to find barren rock where a thriving facility had once stood. Every building, every ship, every piece of data gone. If it had never existed. The only thing left behind was a single human-made probe broadcasting one simple message on repeat. We see you. The Kalari never spoke of it again. And neither did the rest of the galaxy. The unspoken understanding. By now, every major species had reached the same conclusion. Humanity was not expanding its borders like traditional empires. They were not flaunting their power, but they were watching every betrayal, every conspiracy, every quiet attempt to undermine them. And when a line was crossed, ***, when the threat became real, ***, humanity acted. Swiftly. Silently. With absolute precision. So the galaxy adapted again. They stopped provoking. They stopped testing boundaries. Because they all knew. You made an enemy of humanity, you wouldn't get a war. You would simply disappear. Earth's final message. Some still wondered if humanity would ever claim open power, if they would one day step out of the shadows and take their place as the new ruling force of the galaxy. But that answer came in the form of a message sent to every major galactic leader. A short transmission. No threats. No demands. Just words that sent a chill through the cosmos. ***, we are not conquerors. We are not tyrants. But we will never be prey again. You will never see the extent of our reach. You will never know the limits of our power. You will only know that we are watching. Choose your actions carefully. ***. The message ended, and the galaxy understood. Humanity had already won. They didn't need a throne. They didn't need an empire. Because they had become the shadows that guided the stars. And they would never be controlled again. The galaxy had changed. The old systems of power, the bureaucratic stranglehold of the concordance, the rigid military alliances, the shadowy intelligence networks, had all collapsed or adapted in the face of humanity's influence. Earth had done what no other civilization had ever managed. They had taken control without taking the throne. But now a new question loomed over the galactic stage. The proposal that shocked the galaxy came from the Vexan sovereignty, one of the few remaining superpowers. Unlike others, they had not just feared humanity, they had come to admire them. Good peak of a major interstellar summit, their High Chancellor spoke words that sent a wave of unease through every species present. We propose humanity as the rightful leaders of the new Galactic Accord. It was an unprecedented offer. The Galactic Accord was meant to be the replacement for the Concordance, a coalition of civilizations designed to prevent chaos and war. No single species had ever been nominated as its leader. And yet, the Vexan had done exactly that. Across the summit, representatives from dozens of species glanced at each other in uncertainty. Some were furious. Some were terrified. But the most unsettling part, some were actually considering it. Earth's response. The chamber fell silent as Earth's representative, Ambassador Elias Wren, stepped forward. He did not look surprised. He did not look honored. He simply looked amused. Then, in a calm, measured voice, he answered, "We decline." The room erupted into shouting and disbelief. Some species were outraged. Was this some kind of manipulation? Had humanity engineered the fall of the Concordance just to reject power at the final moment? Others were baffled. Why refuse? Humanity had already proven itself the most capable force in the galaxy. Why not take the mantle? But Elias Wren remained unshaken as he continued. You do not understand power as we do. Empires rise and fall. Titles change hands. Systems collapse. But true power does not sit on a throne. It does not bind itself to bureaucracy, nor does it demand obedience. True power is knowing that the universe moves only because you allow it to. Silence. The weight of his words settled over the room like an unspoken truth, one they had always known but never dared to admit. Humanity did not need to rule officially, because the galaxy already answered to them in fear, in respect, in quiet, unspoken compliance. The unbreakable balance. In the weeks that followed, the proposal to make humanity the leaders of the Accord failed. But something else happened. Something far more terrifying. Despite refusing official leadership, humanity was now seen as the final authority. Disputes between empires were settled only after consulting human mediators. Military conflicts ceased whenever Earth so much as hinted at disapproval. Trade negotiations now factored in humanity's potential response before deals were even drafted. Without ever taking a title, without ever signing a single law, humanity had become the hidden axis on which the galaxy turned. Not through threats, not through conquest, but through undeniable reality. The final message. Decades later, as the first human-built space stations appeared in distant sectors of the galaxy, an encrypted message was discovered, one never meant to be seen by alien eyes. It was written in a simple Earth dialect, signed by an unknown official. Contents sent chills through the highest circles of galactic leadership. The galaxy does not yet understand that we have already won. They will spend centuries debating our influence, whispering about our hidden power, and crafting theories about our true strength. They will never realize that the moment they feared us was the moment they lost control. Let them govern their own worlds. Let them believe they are free. They will never act against us, because they already know the cost of trying. We do not need to be emperors, kings, or rulers. We are the unseen hand, and that is far, far greater. Isle was immediately deleted, but the knowledge of it remained, and so humanity continued forward, not as conquerors, not as oppressors, but as the ghosts that guided the galaxy from the shadows. The war had never come, because humanity had never needed one. They had already won, and they always would. The end.